So back in 1983, the Ritz Carlton, the luxury brand, was struggling. So they brought in a man named Horst Schultz to revive the brand and bring back what once was a very thriving, known for customer experience. And bringing in Horst changed everything. He had one rule that he put in place that completely changed the trajectory of the Ritz Carlton. He gave every single employee, didn't matter if it was a bellhop, receptionist, maintenance person, every single employee had the same ability to fix a customer problem. What he did was he gave everyone the ability, without asking any questions, $2,000 to solve a problem instantaneously. This is unprecedented because this was the same level of authority that the general manager have. And his philosophy was that luxury isn't necessarily about marble floors and white gloves. Luxury was about how people felt and their peace of mind. And I promise that I'm going to translate this to how it can show up in your business, but I want to share a couple of things here. So, what he believed is that guests do not expect perfection, just like our clients don't expect perfection. They want trust, they want immediate solutions, and they want to feel taken care of when a problem arises. And here's what's wild. What what Hortz realized was they did a lifetime value customer study, and they found the average lifetime value of a Ritz-Carlton guest was $200,000. So by giving 1% of the lifetime value of the customer, by giving 1%, so $2,000 of flexibility to any employee to make things right with that customer, wasn't an expense. It was truly an investment that when done well, these folks would be coming to the brand, would be loyal to the brand, and would be spending oodles and oodles of money. So here's a couple of examples that the Ritz-Carlton is known for, right? These are some of the folklore around what was happening in the 80s and 90s when Hortz made this change. One guest forgot his laptop at a hotel in Atlanta, and he had a huge presentation in Hawaii the following day. And the housekeeper did not trust that UPS would get the laptop to Hawaii on time. So she personally hopped on a plane, flew it out there, and dropped it off to make sure that it was in his hands. Another example is a newlywed couple that was celebrating their honeymoon in Cancun. The wife lost her wedding band on the beach. Some employees overheard this, right? Or she was sharing this with guest services to see if anyone had turned it in. And they ended up buying a bunch of metal detectors, and a bunch of Ritz-Carlton employees searched the beach overnight and were able to find her ring and return it to her the next day. Imagine that sinking feeling of losing your wedding band right after you got married, and what a joy, and how just over the top, how would you feel, right? If somebody went through that level of effort to find your ring for you, right? Those are the things that build brand loyalty. And what the Ritz-Carlton found is actually the average dollar amount to solve a solution right away was less than $100. So most of the solutions didn't cost anywhere near the $2,000 limit. Most of them were less than $100. So the real power wasn't the money. What it was is the trust that it built with the clientele, but also how employees felt empowered. So here's what the lesson is for me, and here's how we're going to relate it to your financial planning practice. So the $2,000 is never really about spending money, right? It was about giving employees flexibility and freedom to be able to solve solutions without having to go to the boss. By not putting a lot of red tape, a lot of decision making in place, it allowed people to act in the moment and to have that freedom. And what it also does, side effect, is that anything that could be a small problem could turn into a big problem with more time, right? So if it takes time to go through the red tape or go up the ladder, small problems can become irritations and grow into big problems. So the Ritz stood the Ritz understood something back in 1983 that most businesses still struggle with today. Your brand's greatest asset, it's not your product. It is not your asset allocation. It is not the insurance offerings that you have. It is how you make people feel. So I want to give you a couple of examples from my own business and from the businesses of advisors that I work with. So for me, I remember we had a Thursday appointment. Now, if you recall, my whole office was closed on Fridays. No employees were in on Fridays. We had a Thursday appointment at 5 o'clock, and my director of operations, Lori, and I were sitting in the meeting together. And ironically, it's about a laptop. And we held the meeting with our client. She was telling us that after the meeting, she was going over to her sister's house and who lived right in Loveland. My office was ironically on Wall Street in Loveland, Ohio, and her sister lived on Wall Street. So we were having our meeting, and Lori and I were cleaning up afterwards and getting ready to head out of the office when Lori noticed her work computer was tilted up against the leg of our conference table. And we were like, oh no, Sharon forgot her computer. And knowing it was her work computer and that we would not, so something about our client, she had a really unique. Oh, I was like, that's okay. She said her sister lives on Wall Street. So I grabbed the laptop and on my way home from the office, drove up and down the street looking for her car in her sister's driveway. And I went up to the door and knocked on the door, and her sister answered. And I will tell you, our client was so relieved. She's like, I don't know what I would have done. I have this huge project that I'm working on that I had to work on tomorrow. I would have been, and knowing that our entire office was closed, she would have been SOL the entire weekend. And it made such a difference in the brand. And of course, her sister's the one answering the door, right? And how great did that make us look? Like, hey, we went above and beyond. We wanted to make sure you had this computer. Just a great story. Another just really simple, so that one was a free example, right? Another simple, really inexpensive. I was working on a couple of different keynote speaking contracts at the same time. And I responded to one of the gals that I was working with an incorrect date and yeah, some details. And I immediately was like, oh shoot, wrong person. So I responded to her and I was like, ignore that. So sorry. Here are the right pieces of information. I clearly have not had enough coffee today. And about 5 minutes later, in my inbox was a Starbucks gift card. And this is amazing because this is someone who they were hiring me. It wasn't even like my client, but she saw the need that I said, oh my gosh, I need more coffee. And her message inside of the Starbucks email that came to me with the gift card was so cute. She said, you said send coffee. So here I am sending coffee. Hope you enjoy an extra treat today. And again, the way that that made me feel was so great. And it was just, and of course, I emailed her immediately and was like, that is so cute. I love that, like over the top, like it did. And she's like, literally, it was $10 and it took me no less than 3 minutes to get on, punch your email address in, and send it. Another example that I can think of is I had an advisor that I did some coaching with years ago, and she had some grandparent clients in the office, and their grandkids were with them. And one of the grandkids left her Barbie. And so, of course, they saw the Barbie laying there, called the grandparent, and we're like, okay, you left the Barbie. And the grandparent's like, that's okay. I'll swing by and pick her up tomorrow. So her team took Barbie on a bunch of adventures all day long and took photos. So they showed Barbie making coffee, Barbie on the phone, Barbie working on, two screens with stocks all over them. And they took Barbie on all these adventures all day long, took pictures, sent it to the client, and said, don't worry, we made sure we put Barbie to work. She'll be here tomorrow when you stop by. And the client was so tickled. The grandkids thought it was like the funniest thing ever that Barbie was working at their financial plan, their grandparents' financial planner's office. And again, it cost nothing, but brought joy and delight to the clients. And if you listen to, there's an episode that I did with Craig Gingrich, and we talked about the humble pie. And what I love are these examples of how do we, especially when we make a mistake, right? When there is something that we do because we are human. You've heard me talk about the humble pie example. It's so easy to take ownership and to say, I'm so sorry we screwed up. That's not our common practice. And when we do, we need to eat a big slice of humble pie. And so we'd love for you to have some pie on us, right? It takes no time at all. And Craig shared in that podcast episode that, and I'll make sure to link it below, um, that the first time he did the humble pie thing, I don't even think he was taking ownership of a problem that was like in their office. I think it was the a custodian company's issue. But instead of passing the buck and saying, "Oh, it was not our fault; it's Fidelity's fault," or blaming it on somebody else in the office for not doing their job correctly, they just take ownership and take care of the problem. And he said the first time they did it, the client was just floored. Just floored because they were like, look, it wasn't even a big deal. I wasn't even that upset, but thank you so much. I can't wait to share this pie with our coworkers. And again, the practical challenge here that I'd love to impart on you is like, what if you gave your team a budget? Let's say it's $100 or $200 to surprise and delight your clients each month. And no questions, no approvals, no Slack messages asking for permission, no waiting for your response. What if you gave your team a budget? And I have had advisory teams in our group coaching program not just give their team a budget, but actually force them to spend the money and say, you have to spend $200 a month surprising and delighting our clients. So, not just looking for mistakes and errors like in the Ritz Carlton example, but also like, how can we be intentional about surprising and delighting our clients? So most of the time it'll cost 25 bucks, 50 bucks, 75 bucks, not a lot, but it buys you trust. It buys you loyalty. It very often uh, buys you referrals, and it creates this connection and loyalty from your clients that all advisors are really aiming for. In this world of AI and being able to chat GPT the best portfolio, maximized for 5-year returns and fees and expenses, this is stuff that makes us human, that makes our clients feel seen, known, heard, and value. And that's really what people are looking for today. And so by empowering your team to think creatively, and I will tell you what, like your employees and what they found with the Ritz-Carlton was that by giving everybody the ability to do this on their own without having to ask permission, gave them flexibility. It allowed them to exercise their creative brains to come up with problems to solutions. Because, right, if you think of something wild, like it's going to be hard to approach your boss and say, hey, I'm thinking we should buy 4 metal detectors and go out on the beach all night long and look for this. Instead, just being able to do it, no matter how wild the idea, as long as it's within budget. I love that. And so your team won't act slow. They won't play it safe. They won't let the moment pass by waiting for you to think about it or waiting for permission from their advisor, right? The Ritz didn't scale luxury with perfection. They scaled it by building trust and by tapping into the emotions that their clientele had. So that's where I just wanted to share today that maybe the real question isn't always how can I make my client experience more impressive? While, of course, that's a great question to be asking. Maybe it's how can I trust my team more deeply to protect that client experience? So, really, maybe it's both. But fast action, creativity, it builds loyalty from your team and from the clients. And how great for your teammates when they're, handling a call from a client who is not happy, or they're having to deliver bad news about needing someone to re-sign something or a transfer getting botched up. How much easier is it for your team to communicate that problem, also knowing that they can go ahead and do something super sweet to make up for it? So that is my story time for the day. But I love the Ritz Carlton. We all want to deliver that Ritz Carlton client experience. So it starts with being able to fix mistakes and be intentional about turning mistakes into moments of connection.